Welcome to Empress Secrets, your ultimate destination for uncovering the hidden truths of history's most shocking tales. If you're fascinated by stories of ambition, betrayal, and the dark side of power, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button now to never miss an episode, and let's dive into today's gripping narrative. In the scorching desert of ancient Mesopotamia, one of Rome's most powerful men met an end so grotesque that it haunted the empire for generations. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, had built his fortune on the suffering of others, only to discover that greed, when taken too far, becomes its own executioner. This is the story of how gold, the very thing that made him powerful, became the instrument of his most horrific demise. To truly understand the magnitude of Crassus' fall, we must first journey back to the foundations of his rise. Born around 115 BCE into a noble but not extraordinarily wealthy family, Marcus Licinius Crassus grew up in the shadow of Rome's turbulent politics. The Roman Republic was a cauldron of intrigue, where patricians and plebeians vied for power, and wealth was often the key to unlocking influence. Crassus' father, a former consul, had been a man of principle, but his opposition to the populist reforms of the Gracchi brothers led to his tragic suicide during a purge. This early brush with loss and political violence shaped young Crassus into a survivor, one who learned that in Rome, mercy was a luxury few could afford. As a young man, Crassus aligned himself with the dictator Sulla during the civil wars that ravaged the Republic in the 80s BCE. Sulla's prescriptions, lists of enemies to be executed and their properties confiscated, provided Crassus with his first taste of opportunistic wealth building. He bought up the estates of the condemned at bargain prices, often through intimidation or outright manipulation. This real estate speculation became the cornerstone of his empire. By the time Sulla's regime stabilized, Crassus had amassed a fortune that dwarfed most of his peers. But he didn't stop there. He ventured into mining, particularly silver mines in Spain, and even formed his own private fire brigade in Rome. In a city plagued by frequent fires due to overcrowded wooden tenements, Crassus' men would arrive at burning buildings, offering to buy the property at a fraction of its value while it still smoldered. If the owner refused, the firefighters would simply stand by and watch the structure burn to the ground. It was ruthless, efficient, and incredibly profitable. Crassus' wealth wasn't just in land and mines. It extended to human capital. He owned thousands of slaves, training them in various trades and renting them out for profit. His slave-run operations included everything from construction to education. Yes, he even had slaves who were skilled grammarians and philosophers, whom he leased to wealthy families. This diversification made him resilient to economic fluctuations. By modern estimates, his net worth could have been equivalent to billions of dollars today, making him not just Rome's richest man, but one of the wealthiest individuals in recorded history up to that point. Yet, for all his financial acumen, Crassus craved something money couldn't directly buy: military glory and the adulation that came with it. In Roman society, true prestige was earned on the battlefield, not in the marketplace. Senators whispered that Crassus was merely a moneybags, a financier who bought his way into power but lacked the martial prowess of his contemporaries. This stung deeply. He had seen action, notably in suppressing the slave revolt led by Spartacus in 71 BCE. Crassus commanded the Roman forces that finally crushed the rebellion, crucifying 6,000 survivors along the Appian Way as a grim warning. But even this victory was overshadowed. Pompey the Great arrived late and claimed much of the credit, stealing the thunder from Crassus' triumph. The formation of the First Triumvirate in 60 BCE was Crassus' attempt to level the playing field. He allied with Pompey, his rival, and Julius Caesar, an ambitious up-and-comer drowning in debt. Crassus bankrolled Caesar's political campaigns, including his bid for consul, in exchange for influence and his share of the spoils. The trio divided the Roman world. Caesar got Gaul to conquer, Pompey consolidated his hold on Spain and the East, and Crassus got the scraps, including a governorship in Syria. It was here that his envy festered. Caesar's dispatches from Gaul spoke of epic battles, vast territories annexed, and hordes of slaves and treasure flowing back to Rome. Pompey's earlier conquests in the east had earned him the title Magnus, the Great. Crassus, at 60, felt like the forgotten partner, his achievements reduced to ledger books while others etched their names in blood and stone. The Parthian Empire, sprawling from the Euphrates River to the Indus Valley, became Crassus' obsession. This wasn't just any kingdom, it was a powerhouse descended from the Persian Empire, controlling the Silk Road, the artery of trade between East and West. Spices from India, silk from China, precious gems, and above all, gold and silver flowed through Parthian hands. Conquering it would not only grant Crassus the military laurels he desired, but also multiply his wealth exponentially. He dreamed of Parthian treasuries overflowing with bullion, enough to make Rome's economy bend to his will. Ignoring the Senate's reluctance to declare war, fearing it would upset the delicate balance of power, Crassus proceeded anyway. In 55 BCE, he arrived in Syria as governor, his mind set on invasion. Syria was a prosperous province, but Crassus treated it like his personal piggy bank. He levied heavy taxes, extorted temple treasures, including from the sacred temple in Jerusalem, and amassed supplies for his campaign. Local allies, like the Armenian king Artavasdes, offered assistance but warned of Parthian prowess. Crassus dismissed them, blinded by arrogance. He had intelligence of Parthian internal strife. King Oroda II was dealing with rebellions, and his general Surena, or Surin, was a young noble whose loyalty was questionable. To Crassus, this screamed opportunity. His army was formidable, 7 legions of heavy infantry, about 35,000 men, plus 4,000 cavalry, mostly Gallic auxiliaries lent by Caesar, and 4,000 light troops. His son Publius, fresh from victories under Caesar in Gaul, joined as a cavalry commander, adding a personal stake. The force crossed the Euphrates at Zeugma in spring 53 BCE, entering Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, a cradle of civilization but also a death trap for invaders unfamiliar with its deserts. Initial advances were easy. Towns like Nicephorium surrendered, and Crassus looted them mercilessly. But Surena, the Parthian commander, was no fool. A member of one of Parthia's 7 great houses, Surena was a master tactician, blending Persian traditions with innovative strategies. He avoided direct confrontation, instead using his mobile army, 10,000 horse archers and 1,000 cataphracts, heavily armored cavalry, to harass the Romans. Parthian bows were composite masterpieces capable of piercing Roman armor from 200 yards. Their camels carried endless arrow supplies, turning battles into sieges of attrition. As the Romans marched deeper, the heat became an enemy. Temperatures soared to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, mirages danced on the horizon, and water sources dried up. Crassus' guide, a local chieftain named Abgarus, suspected by some historians as a Parthian plant, led them into arid plains near Keri, modern Harran, Turkey. Morale plummeted as scouts reported ghostly riders on the dunes, Parthian psychological warfare at its finest. Soldiers whispered of omens, eagles refusing to fly, standards stuck in the ground. The Battle of Keri unfolded on June 9, 53 BCE, a date etched in Roman infamy. Crassus formed his men into a hollow square for protection, but Surena's forces encircled them like a noose. The Parthians unleashed arrow storms, their Parthian shot, allowing retreats while firing backward. Roman testudos, turtle formations, held initially, but hours of bombardment cracked shields and nerves. Publius, impetuous like his father once was, charged with 1,300 cavalry, 500 archers, and 8 cohorts of infantry. It was a trap. Surena's cataphracts engaged, while horse archers flanked. Publius' men were slaughtered. He himself, wounded, ordered a slave to kill him to avoid capture. His head was paraded on a lance, breaking Crassus' spirit. The Romans lost 20,000 dead, 10,000 captured. Crassus retreated to Keri city, but negotiations turned sour. Whether treachery or mishap, Crassus was seized. Surena, seeking to humiliate the invader, ordered molten gold poured down his throat, a poetic justice for the greedy Roman. Sate your hunger for gold, the Parthians mocked as Crassus writhed in agony, the liquid metals searing his insides. The aftermath rippled through history. Rome's eagles were captured, a national disgrace avenged only decades later by Augustus. The triumvirate collapsed, paving the way for Caesar and Pompey's civil war. Parthia rose as a pure power, influencing Roman policy for centuries. But let's expand deeper into Crassus' early life to see the seeds of his doom. As a boy. And so, the tale of Crassus reminds us that greed's golden allure can lead to a fiery end. If this story ignited your curiosity about history's dark secrets, like, share, and subscribe to Empress Secrets right now. Your support motivates us to uncover more tales like this. Imagine the inspiration you'll get from knowing how ambition shapes destinies. Hit that bell icon for notifications and join our community of truth seekers. Until next time, stay curious on Empress Secrets.